Hello, I'm Zac Klinedinst, student pastor here at the Pentecostals of Lee Road. In this video, we are going to be discussing the topics of gratitude and goals, specifically from the context of how can we engage our students through these two topics of gratitude and goals. Now, outside of being a student pastor and outside of youth class and youth hangouts, I can also be found as a mental health professional. That means I have my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And on a weekly basis, I work with a population ranging from infants to adults. Why I mention that is because as we talk through this topic, that's the lens that I'm going to be approaching our discussion, is how can we bridge these ideas of the struggles that our students may be presenting with, the difficulties as we look at this COVID-19 pandemic. How can we do that through a lens of understanding where they're coming from, maybe emotionally or cognitively, and also looking at it from the lens of a spiritual paradigm. What can we understand in the spirit about what our students are bringing during this time? So as we get back to our discussion of gratitude and goals, as I was preparing for this video, one of the first things that really stood out to me was the importance of asking, what is gratitude? As we're sitting here and as you're watching this video and you're thinking about it, in your mind, how would you define gratitude? What stands out to you in that term? I kind of looked up the definitions and began to ponder that in my own mind. And one of the definitions that stood out to me was simply the quality of being thankful. When we discuss gratitude, that's really what we're talking about. This quality, this concept of being thankful. We can express gratitude then in situations where we have much to be thankful for, and in situations where we may struggle finding things that we're thankful for in those times. Another definition that I really liked said returning kindness. I think that it's those situations, the situations where we're really having a difficult day, or our job is difficult, for example, and working with tough situations, and we're trying to find answers, and we're trying to be there and to be that sense of hope and that sense of strength for our students. And we're coming up and we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. We don't have answers. And it's in those moments we could pause, we could ask, how can I express gratitude to my students in this time? I think those moments is where we can take that definition, returning kindness. And so it's from these two definitions that we're going to work from for the next few moments as we talk about gratitude. So how do we practice gratitude? As a student pastor, you're facing a new obstacle. You're a student pastor at this time, working with students who you can't get in a classroom together in the same building. We're facing new obstacles of conveying the gospel. We have new challenges of how do we engage with students who at this time, maybe if there's seniors in your student ministry who are graduating and won't have the opportunity to walk this year and won't finish out the last couple of weeks of their final year of high school. That's tough. There's difficulty in that. Even as we look into working with students in hyphen ministry who may be graduating from college, there could be a sense of grief and of hurt, that not being able to celebrate and finalize these great achievements. As a student pastor, often you're there to bear that burden with them. Maybe students in your own ministry have talked to you about this, have come to you and have mentioned the concerns that they have about, at this time, with COVID-19. How can we express gratitude in the face of uncertainty? How can we express gratitude when there's pain and maybe people who are connected to your church or to students who you know. Maybe there's grief and they've lost family or friends or people who they know because of this pandemic. If there's students who you're working with who maybe have their first job and they're working, and through this pandemic they may have lost that job or have gotten laid off for a time being. There's a lot during this that can be difficult, that can stretch us in ministry. And then when we present the ever complexity of how do we reach out and engage with students and relate to them, now with the barrier between us of cameras and smartphones or tablets or computers, and we're trying to convey the gospel and show peace and hope and gratitude through Zoom calls or through Facebook Live. This video, I hope, can provide some practical tools for that, knowing that the job that we're tasked with is not always easy. But the beauty is that you have the opportunity at this time, at a critical time in history, a critical time in the lives of your students, to be a model of how do we find gratitude in times that are difficult. How do we show gratitude when we're faced with uncertainty, when we're faced with difficult situations and difficulties in our world, in our churches, in our lives? You can be that model. You can project to them what it means to show gratitude, what it means to return kindness in situations that are not kind to us. You can be that voice, that spiritual voice, who can discuss the Word of God and what the Word of God tells us during times of crisis, during times of uncertainty, when our faith is tested. You can be that voice on a counseling level, or not even really, more on a neurological level. There's this idea of mirror neurons, which simply means that neuroscience has taught us that when an individual is behaving a certain way, or when they are expressing a certain emotion, and we are interacting with them, we have the tendency to reflect that emotion or experience that as well. If someone walks up to you and they're very angry and they start yelling at you and they get in your face, probably within a couple seconds, you're going to start feeling a little bit of fury, boil up inside of you. If someone's smiling near you and they look at you and they smile, or if they tell you something, you're probably going to smile back. Mirror neurons are part of a reason for this, that as we connect, our brains fire and they mirror the other individual that we are seeing. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because as you model to your students how you can show gratitude, how you can find peace, as you model what it looks like to have peace in uncertainty, to have faith in uncertain times, as you project to your students faith and peace and hope, as you express gratitude to your students, you are in a way helping to wire their brains. There's mirror neurons that are taking place in that moment that they are experiencing because of that interaction of connecting with you. They are experiencing that. And so you are modeling and you are showing them, this is how we can have gratitude. This is how we express gratitude. And they learn from that. They pick up on that. And so you can be a critical point of expressing to them, this is how we show gratitude. Further, you can reframe and you can talk about how there are difficulties. There are situations that we don't have answers for. But as we look at the Word of God, we can find our joy and our peace and our hope, our assurance is in God more than in the present situations in this world. A classic example of this is Job. Job tells us how we are to respond in adversity and in crisis, but not always why adversity and crisis comes in our life. You can be that voice of showing your students how you respond in a pandemic more than having the answers of why the pandemic ever came to be. So we express gratitude by being present, by being there with them in that moment. But the next step is goals. Goals is a very important point because as a student pastor, you understand you're working with young people who are in a very critical time of their lives. These next number of years, they will make huge decisions of where will they go to college, what will they study in college, who will they marry, what careers will they begin to endeavor on. They will make decisions over the next number of years that will plot the next 50 years of their lives. There can be a lot of fear and anxiety presenting in that as we look at the big picture of what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to make these decisions? Consistency is key. As a student pastor during a time like this, that's unprecedented, being there, being present, not having the right words, not Facebook Live working every single time, not everything working perfectly together, but just being there, calling them, texting them, reaching out, showing your students that even during times where there is uncertainty and when we don't know what tomorrow holds, they do know that you are available. They do know that you are there. So having consistency is important. But also continue to set goals during this time. I'd encourage you to challenge your students in challenges or in maybe creating a Bible reading challenge. And since they've had extra time throughout this pandemic to read their Bibles and to engage with the Word of God. You can set goals in prayer or in fasting. You can also continue to set goals as you come together. Maybe it is through Facebook Live, or if it is through a FaceTime call, or if it's through a Zoom call. You can continue to set goals and set markers there that as we can't be together in the same room presently, you can continue to look forward. Because as a leader, what you have the opportunity to do with in continuing to set goals and setting goals ahead is you are projecting their attention forward. You are projecting their attention forward in our ministry, forward in their lives. You're projecting their attention forward in this pandemic. And so instead of us staying present and staying in the fear that is in this world, you have the opportunity through setting goals and encouraging them to continue to stretch further and push themselves to get their eyes on the Lord. And this is what Luke reminds, or Jesus said this, and Luke conveyed it in his gospel, where Jesus talks about the signs of the times. And he says everything that's going to be coming at the end of time. And during that, as he's discussing earthquakes and he's discussing pestilence and he's talking about all this stuff going on, Jesus says, look to the heavens. Keep your eyes fixed on heaven. That's what you can do as a student pastor at this time. As everyone else is looking around at what, where can we buy toilet paper? Where's the next, can we buy food? Where's hand sanitizer? And as your students probably are really buying into the memes and everything that's going on during all this, by setting goals, you can focus their attention on heaven, on things that are above. Understand that as a student pastor, another big component here is momentum. And during this kind of time, as we're not together and we're kind of separate, momentum can be a big factor that can be lost. And what I believe is through this, by being connected, where connectedness can bridge gratitude and goals and being there, being present, you can find momentum in your student ministry, momentum in the lives of your students and their relationship with God, that instead of losing momentum can be gained during this time by connectedness, by expressing gratitude, and ultimately by continuing to set achievable goals that we reach to and we strive for as a ministry. I'm excited about what God is doing around the world in student ministers and pastors just like you. You have a tremendous privilege of being able to reach and shape the lives of the next generation. I pray that God would continue to bless your ministry and that God would bless us all as we continue to convey the gospel during this pandemic. God bless you.